There's been more fighting overnight in Sudan, where rival forces remain locked in a power struggle despite international calls for a ceasefire. The UN says that more than 180 people have been killed in more than 3 days of fighting between the Sudanese army and the country's largest paramilitary force. A further 1,800 have been injured in the violence in the capital Khartoum and other cities. The UN's envoy to Sudan says the warring parties are not open to peace talks. Hospitals, homes and power stations have been shelled. Al Jazeera's Hiba Morgan is in Khartoum.
Khartoum airport and the areas around it were battlegrounds on the third day of fighting between Sudan's army and the biggest and most powerful paramilitary force. Explosions, airstrikes and gunshots are heard across the capital as both sides claim they're making advances in strategic areas, but details on the ground are unclear. Footage released by the Sudanese military shows a number of Rapid Support Forces troops surrendering their weapons and equipment in Khartoum. The army says it's resumed control of state TV and will use it to update the public. It also says it's retaken Merowe Airport in the north. But that conflicts with claims by the RSF, which says its men still control the facility.
This message is for all those who are saying that Merowe Airport is still under the control of the Sudanese army. Right now, we are inside Merowe Airport. As you can see, there is a plane behind us, and we are stationed here until the victory.
The RSF also says an army-led battalion handed over its vehicles in the Eastern Nile, parts of Khartoum state. Sudan has been brought to a standstill after attempts to open a humanitarian corridor failed. Fighting destroyed Khartoum's main water station, raising fears of widespread food and water shortages.
Only one still water bottle left. This is the one and only one, and everything is empty now. The water bottle section looks so empty. All the water, all milk, everything is empty here on the refrigerator. Wow. See, everything is colors. Nothing left. Food stock is not available.
And hospitals have become targets. Shelling on a lab in this clinic left several people injured and many to evacuate. Doctors say they're running out of medical supplies. Medics say the reported numbers of dead or injured do not reflect the reality on the ground. That's because fighting on the streets makes it hard to reach hospitals or count the dead. Civilians remain trapped in their homes, waiting for the fighting to end so they can feel safe again. A power struggle between Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his deputy Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, commander of the RSF, triggered the outbreak of fighting on Saturday, with neither side willing to back down. While airstrikes continue and the warring sides show no desire for talks, it's the people of Sudan that are paying the heaviest price. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Khartoum.
Ahmed Abbas Abu Sham is the Vice President of the Sudan Doctors Union. He says the situation in Khartoum is dire.
During the last couple of days, the major teaching hospitals in Khartoum have been targeted and bombarded with heavy artillery, and they have been severely damaged to the extent that they are unoperational at the moment, and they are not fit for purpose anymore. Besides that, the remaining hospitals are also dormant and non-functioning because the electricity power has been cut and the water supply has been curtailed. So virtually all the medical institutions in Khartoum are non-functioning at the moment because the doctors and the other medical personnel could not reach the hospitals or other medical centers because the major bridge on the River Nile has been blocked by the military personnel. So the injured persons are either treated locally with primitive measures or first aid measures, and some of them are left to die.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has spoken directly to the leaders of Sudan's rival forces, calling for an end to hostilities and urging them to ensure the safety of civilians and aid workers. Earlier, the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres condemned the violence, warning of a humanitarian catastrophe. Our diplomatic editor James Bays reports.
The UN Security Council is calling for an urgent ceasefire, although behind the scenes there are certainly divisions about how to proceed. The Council was briefed by the UN's top official in Khartoum, Volker Perthes. After that closed meeting, a visibly tired Mr. Perthes spoke to reporters at UN headquarters by video link.
The two sides who are fighting are not giving the impression that they want a mediation for a peace between them right away. Rather, they are calling on the other side the other side to give up or to surrender, or the other side to be disbanded. So that doesn't sound very much like a preparedness to give in to or allow mediation efforts to succeed on short notice.
Mr. Perthes says it's too dangerous for him to travel around Khartoum, but he's in touch by phone with the two rival generals who he believes are both still in the city.
I will be just saying it in public.
In New York, the UN Secretary General has also had talks with each of the two men, as well as with regional leaders.
The situation has already led to horrendous loss of life, including many civilians. Any further escalation could be devastating for the country and the region. I urge all those with influence over the situation to use it in the cause of peace, to support efforts to end the violence, restore order, and return to the path of transition. The humanitarian situation in Sudan was already precarious and is now catastrophic.
The African Union's call for an immediate ceasefire by the two parties.
The three African countries on the Security Council have called for Sudan's airspace to be reopened so that mediators can travel there. The IGAD group of regional countries wants to dispatch a delegation. The Peace and Security Council of the African Union are planning a field mission, and the chairperson of the African Union, Moussa Faki, wants to go to Khartoum to mediate. But for now, Sudan's borders are closed, and in recent days the airport has been a battlefield. For now, the UN believes its best hope is to expand its humanitarian pauses and eventually turn them into a durable ceasefire. James Bays, Al Jazeera at the United Nations.
Egypt and South Sudan say they've been in regular contact with the warring sides and are prepared to help with peace efforts.
If I had a message to deliver, and I have said this to President Salva Kiir of South Sudan, we are both ready to play a mediation role between our brothers in Sudan in order to reach a truce. This is still going on, and we have endless calls between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces. We are in constant contact with them to encourage them on a ceasefire, an end to the bloodshed of the Sudanese people, and reaching negotiations that leads to restoring stability once again.